Welcome to tonight's bedtime story, where whispers of magic and echoes of ancient tales guide you to the land of dreams. As you settle in, let the worries of your day dissolve like mist under the morning sun. Tonight, we venture into an enchanting tale called The Forest Secret. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine yourself at the edge of a mystical forest, the air filled with the scent of pine and a hint of adventure. Let my voice be the breeze that guides you deeper into the heart of the woods, where legends come alive and secrets whisper through the leaves. Allow the forest's serene and mysterious presence to envelop you as the real world fades away and the realm of dreams takes hold. Let us begin our journey into the night, into a story where the magic of the forest unfolds, promising wonders and tranquility. Chapter 1. Into the Whispering Woods. In the dim light of dawn, the village of Elmswood seemed to slumber still, save for the bustling at the edge of the great whispering woods where a small assembly had formed. Leah, a young woman known for her unyielding courage and kindness, stood ready, clad in a cloak the colour of the forest's deep underbrush. Her eyes sparkled with anticipation, her heart alight with the fire of adventure. Beside her towered Corin, the jovial giant, whose laughter rumbled like distant thunder, and whose size was only matched by his boundless good spirit. His large hands rested comfortably on a sturdy axe, polished and sharp. Nearby, a talking crow named Whisper flitted from branch to branch, his sleek black feathers glistening under the emerging sun, while Eldon, the mysterious hermit with eyes as deep as ancient secrets, leaned quietly on his gnarled staff. The air was thick with the scent of moss and morning dew, and as the village bell chimed the hour, Leah addressed her companions. "Friends," she began, her voice steady and clear, "we gather at the cusp of day to unravel the secrets held tight by the heart of these enchanted woods. Legends speak of its guardians and the dark forces seeking to corrupt its purity. We shall find the truth and with hope keep the darkness at bay." Corin's deep laugh broke the solemnity of the moment. "And have a grand tale to tell when we return," he boomed, causing a few birds to scatter into the sky. Whisper, ever the watchful one, cocked his head and spoke, his voice a strange, melodious croak. "Mind the shadows and heed the whispers," he warned. "The forest sees all, and its secrets are not yielded lightly." Eldon, who had spent many years in voluntary isolation within the very woods they sought to explore, nodded in agreement. "There are paths in these woods not marked by human steps," he murmured, his gaze sweeping the shadowed undergrowth. "We must be wary, for the woods guard themselves with more than just thorns and brambles. As the sun rose higher, casting a golden glow that pierced the canopy, the group stepped forward, crossing the boundary from the known world into the realm of legend and mystery. With each step, the forest seemed to awaken. Flowers tilted their heads to catch the morning light, and the trees whispered among themselves in a breeze that seemed to carry both welcome and warning. Thus began their journey into the whispering woods, where the paths twisted like the stories of old, and every leaf and stone held a secret, waiting for the most intrepid of hearts to discover. The forest floor was carpeted with ancient moss and delicate ferns that seemed untouched by time. And as the party ventured deeper into the whispering woods, the trees grew taller, their branches weaving a dense tapestry above. The air was cool, filled with the earthy scent of old growth and the subtle undertone of wildflowers. Laya led the way with a quiet determination, her eyes scanning the shadowed paths that branched off in all directions. Corin's heavy steps were muffled by the thick moss, but even his presence couldn't dispel the sense of watching eyes hidden amongst the foliage. These paths are older than any tale told by our elders, he murmured, his voice unusually soft for his size. Eldon nodded, guiding them through a particularly twisted section of the woods. These paths were formed by the first guardians of the forest, he explained. They converge at the ancient meeting glade. If legends hold true, that's where we'll find the first of our tests. As they walked, Whisper flitted from tree to tree, his sharp eyes catching movements that the others missed. Suddenly he called out, "Beware!" Just as a vine, thick as a man's wrist, whipped out from the underbrush towards Leah. With swift reflexes honed by years of training, Leah rolled to the side, avoiding the vine, which recoiled back into the thicket. "It seems the forest tests us already," she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced with the thrill of the close call. Corin laughed, breaking the sudden tension. "A lively place, our forest? It plays as hard as any giant's kin." He swung his axe with precision, clearing a few more intrusive vines, making sure their path was safe. As they approached what appeared to be an ancient stone marker, covered in moss and barely visible under the ivy, Eldon paused. "Here," he said, tracing his fingers over the faint, almost erased engravings. "This marker tells of the unity of earth and life, a reminder that all who walk these paths are bound by the forest's embrace." The group paused, feeling a subtle shift in the air, a soft humming that seemed to emanate from the ground itself. The path ahead split into two, each disappearing into thickets denser than what they had passed. "We should take the left," Whisper suggested, his voice carrying a certainty that none could question. The right path holds shadows too deep for the morning light. Trusting the crow's instincts, they turned left, the path narrowing until they walked single file. The trees leaned closer, their branches forming a tunnel of leaves and whispers. It was as if the forest itself was guiding them, leading them to its secret heart. After what felt like hours, the path opened into a small clearing where the sunlight streamed through in golden beams, lighting up the faces of wildflowers that nodded as if in greeting. It was a moment of serene beauty, a stark contrast to the hidden dangers they had just faced. Corin's voice, filled with wonder, broke the silence. It's a rare gift to walk such paths. Each step's a story and every breath a song. Indeed, the old paths of the Whispering Woods were more than mere routes through trees. They were the living narratives of the forest, each turn and twist a verse in an age-old epic written by nature itself. The clearing provided a moment of respite and a chance for the travelers to gather their thoughts under the protective gaze of the towering trees. As they rested, Whisper, the talking crow, perched on a low-hanging branch, his dark eyes scanning the group with an intensity that suggested grave matters. "Listen well," Whisper began, his voice echoing slightly in the still air of the clearing. "This forest, while ancient and wise, harbors shadows that lurk deeper than the roots of its oldest trees. You must be wary, not just of what lies beneath your feet, but also of what whispers from the dark." Eldan leaned forward, his face etched with lines of concern. "What speaks in the shadows, Whisper?" "The demon Morloth," Whisper croaked, his feathers ruffling with the weight of his words. Long has he desired to corrupt the heart of this forest, to turn its ancient power to his will. He is cunning, setting traps that ensnare both body and soul. Leah's hand instinctively went to the sword at her belt, her resolve hardening. "We will not fall prey to his machinations. We will stand guard over each other and the forest." Whisper nodded, hopping closer. "Good. But remember, Morloth's deceptions are many. He will try to divide you, to play upon your fears and doubts. Trust in each other, and in the allies you may find along the way." As the warning sank in, a gentle breeze rustled through the leaves, as if the forest itself was affirming the crow's counsel. Corin picked up a fallen twig and twisted it in his hands, his face serious. "So, we keep our eyes open and our hearts bound to one another. We are a chain linked by purpose and friendship." Eldan stood, his staff planted firmly on the ground. "Let us move on then. The deeper we go into the heart of the forest, the closer we get to understanding its secrets and confronting Morloth." With renewed determination, the group packed up their brief camp. Leah took the lead once again, her steps sure and silent. The path from the clearing wound deeper into the forest, the canopy thickening above them, casting long shadows that danced like spirits in the corner of their eyes. As they walked, the air grew cooler, the light dimmer. Every so often, a flutter of wings or a distant rustle would remind them of Whisper's warning. They moved with caution, their senses heightened, alert to any trickery that might ensnare them. Their journey continued in tense silence, each member of the group lost in their thoughts, pondering the dangers that lay ahead. The deeper they delved, the more palpable the sense of an impending confrontation became. It was as if the very air was charged with a silent challenge, a whispering dare to come further, come deeper into the heart of the whispering woods. As twilight began to shade the sky, painting it with strokes of deep purple and gold, the group found a sheltered grove surrounded by ancient oaks. The branches above intertwined, forming a natural dome that seemed to embrace the weary travelers. Eldan, sensing the weight of the moment, settled against a gnarled tree trunk, his eyes reflecting the flickering light of the small fire Corin had kindled. "It is time," Eldan began, his voice soft yet carrying in the crisp air, "that I tell you of the forest's heart and of my past, a past intertwined with its fate." The others gathered closer, the firelight casting dancing shadows upon their faces as they listened. Long ago, this forest was a sanctuary of pure magic, a nexus of earthly and celestial energies. Its guardians, spirits of earth, air, water, and fire, harmonized to keep the balance. But as with all places of power, it attracted the gaze of darkness. Eldan's hand tightened on his staff as he spoke of the darkness, his gaze lost to memories. Morloth was once a guardian himself, chosen to protect the Nexus. However, his heart grew dark with greed for more power. He sought to control the energies that were meant only to be kept in balance. I was but a young apprentice to the Guardians then, learning the ways of the forest. Eldan paused, the weight of his memories etching deeper lines upon his face. In his quest for power, Morloth betrayed the Guardians. He unleashed a corruption that spread like a blight, tainting creatures, twisting plants into grotesque forms. A battle ensued, a great and terrible clash of magic. It was during this battle that I lost much, including my mentor. Whisper, perched on a low branch, added in a grave tone, and the forest itself became a prisoner, caught between its own corrupted guardians and the unyielding will of Morloth. Leah leaned forward, her eyes alight with resolve. "But the forest still stands. It fights against the corruption." "Yes," Eldan nodded, "because Morloth was not wholly victorious. We managed to bind him, though not destroy. His strength wanes and waxes with the cycles of the earth, and when he gathers enough strength, he stirs, seeking to break his bonds and resume his dark quest. Corin's voice rumbled like distant thunder. And now, as we walk these paths, it is our turn to stand against him, to protect the balance as you once did, Eldan. Eldan looked at each of them, his expression one of gratitude mixed with sorrow. This is why I have lived in solitude, guarding the secrets and the ways of the old magic, and why I have brought you here, to help end what was started long before your time. The fire crackled, a sentinel in the growing darkness as they each processed the hermit's tale. The night deepened around them, carrying with it the sounds of the living forest, both haunting and beautiful. Let us then prepare, Leah said, her voice steady. For whatever may come, we will face it together, and we will see this through, for the forest, and for the memories of those who guarded it before us. The group settled into the night, the fire a small beacon of light in the vast darkness, each member reflecting on the parts they would play in the days to come. As night fully descended upon the whispering woods, the grove in which the travelers had made their camp seemed to close in around them. Shadows lengthened, merging with the darkness, creating a tapestry of black and deeper black that rustled and whispered with the voices of the night. The small fire at the camp center flickered, its glow casting eerie shapes that danced just beyond the reach of its light. Leah, ever watchful, paced the perimeter of their makeshift camp, her eyes scanning the dense thicket. The darkness of the forest seemed almost palpable, as if it were a living, breathing entity. With each sound, the crack of a twig, the rustle of leaves, her hand instinctively reached for the sword at her side, her senses heightened to any sign of threat. Meanwhile, Corin, with his back against an ancient oak, watched Leah's vigilant rounds with a thoughtful expression. "The forest tests us," he murmured, more to himself than to others, his voice a low rumble in the quiet of the night. "It gauges our resolve." Eldan, seated near the fire, his eyes reflecting its flickering light, nodded in agreement. The night brings fears to the surface, making shadows out of hopes and nightmares out of memories. We must be as steadfast in spirit as we are in body. It was then that Whisper, who had been unusually quiet, fluttered down from his perch, landing softly on Leah's shoulder. "The night is not just a blanket of fears," he croaked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "It is also a cloak of revelations. Watch and listen, not just for what moves in the dark, but for what speaks in the silence." Taking the crow's cryptic advice to heart, Leah slowed her pace, allowing the sounds of the forest to wash over her, each rustle, each whisper. As she did so, the initial tension eased slightly, replaced by a profound awareness of the life that teemed around them, unseen but very much present. Suddenly, a soft, melodic hum drifted through the trees, a sound so pure and so unexpected that it caused everyone to pause. The melody was neither human nor wind. It was as if the forest itself was singing, a gentle lullaby that seemed to soothe even the restless spirits that stirred in the shadows. "The forest protects its own," Eldon whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "This melody, it is old, older than any guardian's chant. It is the heart of the forest speaking." As they listened, enraptured by the haunting tune, a sense of peace settled over the camp. The oppressive weight of the shadows lifted, and for a moment, it felt as though the forest had accepted them, sheltering them within its ancient embrace. This moment of peace was a precious gift, a brief respite that fortified their spirits for the trials ahead. They knew that the path they had chosen was fraught with danger, but with each other's support and the forest's mysterious aid, they felt a renewed determination to face whatever lay ahead. Corin finally broke the silence, his voice gentle. "Let us rest while the forest sings. Tomorrow we face what comes with hearts brave and spirits emboldened." And so, with the night's melody cradling them, the travelers found their rest beneath the watchful eyes of the ancient trees, the fire dwindling to embers as the forest continued its nocturnal song. As dawn's first light seeped through the dense canopy of the whispering woods, casting a pale glow over the dew-drenched forest, the travelers stirred from their restful slumber. The melody of the night had faded with the stars, but its echo lingered in their hearts, a gentle reminder of the forest's deep magic and mystery. With the new day came a renewed vigor, and even the air seemed fresher, filled with the promise of revelations yet to come. Corin, with his characteristic booming laughter that shook the tiny droplets from the leaves, was the first to rise. He stirred the remains of their fire back to life, coaxing the embers into a cheerful blaze that crackled merrily in the quiet morning. "Gather round, friends," he called, his voice rich with warmth. "Let the heart of a giant warm you as the sun climbs its way into the sky." One by one, Leah, Eldon, and Whisper joined him, settling around the revived fire. The warmth seeped into their bones, dispelling the last remnants of the night's chill. Corin, always the heart of their group, began to prepare a simple morning meal, his large hands surprisingly nimble as he worked. As they ate, Corin took it upon himself to lift their spirits higher. "A giant's hearth is not just a place for warmth," he began, his deep voice turning to a gentle rumble like distant thunder. "It is a place of stories. In my land, It is said that every fire is a portal to the world of tales, and each spark carries a story from the heart. He scooped up a handful of small stones from the ground and began to arrange them in the dirt around the fire. Each stone, he explained, represented a character in his tale, a tradition of storytelling among his people. As he placed each stone, he introduced the characters. A brave giant, a cunning fox, a wise old tree, and a wandering spirit. With each character's introduction, Corin wove a tale of friendship and adventure, of trials faced and hardships overcome. His story was not just a diversion. It subtly mirrored their own journey, reflecting the challenges they had faced and the bonds they had forged. The tale spoke of unity and strength, and the message was clear. Together they were stronger than any darkness that lay ahead. Leah listened intently, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. She felt the weight of their quest, but Corin's story reminded her of the strength they shared. Eldon too found comfort in the tale, seeing in it the echoes of the ancient legends he had studied. Whisper, perched quietly, seemed to absorb every word. His sharp eyes flicking between the fire and the storyteller. As the story reached its climax, with the characters combining their strengths to dispel a great shadow that threatened their land, the sun broke fully through the trees, bathing the clearing in a golden light that seemed to bless their new day. Corin finished his tale with a hearty laugh, clapping his hands together in satisfaction. And so, like our friends in the story, we too shall face whatever shadows may lie ahead, with hearts brave and united. The group rose from the fire, energized by the tale and the light of day. They packed their belongings, ready to continue their journey deeper into the heart of the whispering woods. They left the clearing with lighter steps, their path guided by the sun's rays filtering through the ancient trees, and their hearts buoyed by the jovial giant's hearth. With the dawn chorus of the forest as their backdrop, they moved forward, each step taking them closer to the secrets they sought and the destiny they were meant to fulfill. Chapter 2: Guardians of the Glade. The morning mist hung low over the forest floor as the adventurers made their way deeper into the heart of the whispering woods. The light was different here. It seemed to pulse with an ethereal quality, filtering through the leaves in iridescent streams that made the very air shimmer with unseen energy. The deeper they ventured, the more the forest seemed alive, aware of their presence, its ancient guardians watching in silent judgment. As they reached a clearing dominated by a magnificent oak tree, whose branches stretched wide like the arms of the world itself, they paused, feeling the weight of many centuries gaze down upon them. At the base of the tree, nestled in the roots that sprawled like a network of natural arteries, sat an elderly figure. His beard was long and tangled with leaves and twigs, and his eyes sparkled with a light that seemed born of the stars themselves. "I am Elah," the figure spoke, his voice resonating with the rustle of leaves and the whisper of wind. "Guardian of the eastern wood, you seek to traverse these sacred grounds, to unveil its secrets and challenge its keeper. But know this, not all who wander are lost, and not all who are lost will find their way." Leah stepped forward, her resolve clear in her steady gaze. "We come with respect for the forest and its guardians. We seek only to protect it from the darkness that threatens its heart." Elah nodded, a slow, measured motion that seemed to stir the very air. "Very well, to pass you must answer a riddle. Fail, and the path will consume you. Succeed, and you may proceed." The group exchanged nervous glances, their previous confidence tempered by the gravity of Elah's words. Leah nodded, signaling their readiness. Elah's voice rose, blending with the sounds of the forest. "I speak without a mouth and hear without ears. I have no body, but I come alive with the wind. What am I?" The group pondered in silence. Whisper, perched on a branch above, suddenly fluttered down, landing softly on Leah's shoulder. "Think of what speaks in silence," he croaked quietly into her ear. Leah's eyes lit up with understanding, and she spoke, an echo. Elah smiled, the first true smile they had seen on his ancient face. "Correct. You may pass, but remember, each guardian's challenge will test not just your mind, but your heart and courage as well." With a gesture from Elah, the ground before them shifted, revealing a path that led deeper into the forest, towards the heart they sought to protect. As they walked, the echo of their footsteps seemed to carry a warning and a blessing, a reminder of the riddles yet to come. After successfully navigating the riddle of Elah, the guardian of the eastern wood, the group ventured deeper into the enchanted forest. The canopy above thickened, weaving a verdant tapestry that dimmed the sunlight to a soft, dappled glow. The air was cooler here, filled with the whispering of leaves and the distant sound of flowing water. The path, now less a path and more a suggestion of worn earth between roots and rocks, meandered toward the sound, leading the adventurers to the banks of a river. The River of Whispers, as Eldon named it, flowed with a clarity that seemed impossible. The water was like liquid crystal, reflecting the world around it with such precision that it was hard to tell where the river began and the reality it mirrored ended. "This river," Eldon began, his voice low and tinged with reverence, "reflects more than just the forest around it. It reflects the soul of whoever looks into its waters. Be wary, for it shows not what you wish to see, but what truly is. One by one, they approached the riverbank, peering into the water. Leah saw herself not as the confident leader she felt herself to be, but younger, more uncertain, the weight of her responsibilities casting shadows across her face. Corin saw himself not as a giant among men, but as a boy, small and vulnerable, a stark contrast to his towering physique and booming laughter. Each vision was a whisper from deep within, a secret part of their soul they had perhaps wished to forget, or had buried beneath layers of strength and bravado. The river whispered these truths, and with each revelation, the adventurers faced a choice: to accept these parts of themselves or turn away in denial. Whisper, the crow, flitted nervously from shoulder to shoulder, offering words of encouragement. To know oneself is to arm oneself against the dark, he croaked wisely. Leah knelt by the water's edge, her reflection gazing back at her with eyes full of potential. "I see now," she whispered, her voice steady despite the emotion welling within her. "I see the fears that fuel my determination. I embrace them, for they make me who I am." As each member of the group confronted their inner selves, the river seemed to respond. The water rippled gently, accepting their acknowledgements and fears. And in its flow, they found a strange sort of peace, a tranquility born of self-acceptance and understanding. When it came time for Eldon to look into the water, he hesitated, a rare uncertainty flickering across his weathered face. But with a deep breath, he leaned over the river. The water showed not an old man burdened by years and secrets, but a young apprentice, bright-eyed and hopeful, a stark reminder of all he had lost and all he had become. Tears, rare and precious, trickled down his cheeks, and he turned away from the river, wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. The river shows us not just who we are, but who we were, he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. It reminds us of our journeys, of the paths we have walked to reach this point. Renewed by their experiences at the River of Whispers, the group pressed on, their steps lighter, their hearts fuller. They had looked into the depths of their souls and had not flinched at what stared back. This, more than any physical challenge, had prepared them for what was to come. Having confronted their innermost selves at the River of Whispers, the group pressed forward with a newfound clarity. The forest seemed to watch and whisper even more intently as they ventured into its deeper sanctums. Here, the trees grew so tall and thick that daylight scarcely touched the forest floor, casting everything in a perpetual twilight. It wasn't long before the path led them to a vast clearing, where the air felt charged, as if brimming with an unseen energy. At the center stood a grand statue of a spectral wolf, its eyes crafted from deep sapphires that shimmered with an internal light. The ground around the statue was scorched, and the air smelled faintly of lightning, an omen that this place was steeped in powerful magic. As they approached, the eyes of the wolf statue glowed brighter, and a deep, resonant voice filled the clearing. "Who dares approach the trial of courage?" The voice boomed, echoing off the trees with a force that made the leaves quiver. Leah stepped forward, her voice strong despite the awe the spectacle inspired. "We are seekers of truth, protectors of this forest. We come to prove our worth and continue our quest." The wolf's eyes seemed to appraise them, its gaze piercing each of their souls. "To pass beyond, one among you must face what they fear the most," the spectral voice declared. Without warning, the ground beneath them trembled, and from the statue, a burst of light shot up into the sky, then split into 4 beams, each beam striking the ground in front of one member of the group. From these points of light emerged figures, each a manifestation of their deepest fears. Before Leah, a giant serpent reared, its fangs dripping venom, a symbol of the overwhelming responsibility she feared might crush her. Corin faced a mirror image of himself, shouting words of doubt and derision, the embodiment of his fear of inadequacy. Eldon confronted a vision of the forest consumed by fire and darkness, his nightmare of failing his duty as its protector. Whisper surprisingly faced a cage, an echo of his fear of confinement and loss of freedom. The voice of the spectral wolf rang out once more. "Face your fears, prove your courage, or be forever barred." One by one, they stepped forward to confront these phantoms. Leah drew her sword, her movements precise as she danced around the serpent, striking deftly. Her actions were not of aggression, but of mastery over her fear, a demonstration of her ability to handle her burdens without being overwhelmed. Corin faced his doppelganger, his voice booming as he countered each verbal assault with affirmations of his strength and worth, breaking the mirror image into fragments of light with his powerful resolve. Eldon, with a profound sadness in his eyes, approached the vision of the burning forest. He knelt, touching the illusionary ground, whispering ancient words of healing and protection. As he did, the fire faded, replaced by a vision of new growth, symbolizing his hope and determination to prevent such a future. Whisper flew directly into the cage, his body passing through it as if it were made of mist. Inside, he turned and spoke clearly. "No bars can hold a spirit free." As each confronted and overcame their fear, the figures dissipated into motes of light, returning to the wolf statue, which then dimmed. The voice, now gentle and approving, filled the air. Well done, brave souls. Proceed with your hearts lightened and your courage affirmed. The barrier at the far side of the clearing lifted, revealing a path that led deeper into the heart of the forest. With renewed strength and hearts bound even tighter by shared trials, the group moved forward, the trial of courage behind them, but more challenges ahead. After the emotional victory of the trial of courage, the travelers continued their journey through the increasingly enigmatic landscape of the whispering woods. The trees here seemed to lean closer, their branches intertwining like fingers, creating a canopy so dense that it cast the forest floor into a deep, perpetual dusk. As the path wound through a particularly dense thicket, a soft moaning caught their attention, a sound so melancholic and full of sorrow that it tugged at their hearts. Following the sound, they emerged into a clearing where the atmosphere was thick with a mist that clung to the skin and chilled the bone. Scattered throughout the clearing were ghostly figures, translucent and shimmering with an ethereal light. Each spirit appeared caught in its own moment of despair, their faces etched with the agony of their last living moments. The air was heavy with their grief, and their cries filled the clearing with haunting echoes. Eldan, who had encountered many spirits in his long guardianship of the forest, stepped forward with a solemn expression. "These are the lost," he explained quietly, "adventurers who came seeking the forest's secrets, as we do, but fell prey to their own fears and the forest's darker forces." As they moved through the clearing, each spirit seemed to become aware of their presence, their faces turning towards the living visitors, eyes filled with a silent plea. One spirit, a young woman clad in armor that shimmered like moonlight, stepped forward. Her voice, when she spoke, was like the whisper of wind through leaves. "Turn back," she implored, "lest you join our lament. This forest guards its heart with more than riddles and trials." Leah, ever the compassionate leader, approached the spirit. "We honor your journey and mourn your loss," she said gently, "but we must continue. We seek to protect this forest, not just uncover its secrets." The spirit nodded, her expression softening. "Then hear our stories, for each of us fell to a different shadow. Learn from our failings, and perhaps you can succeed where we did not." One by one, the spirits shared their tales. A burly warrior spoke of his battle with a creature of vines and thorns, born from the very earth of the forest. A wizard recounted his encounter with a deceptive mirror that trapped his soul. A young thief described a chasm that whispered promises of treasure, only to close upon those who dared its depths. With each story, the group listened, their resolve hardening. Whisper, the crow, flitted from one spirit to another, his head cocked in solemn respect. "Their regrets teach us," he croaked, Their losses guide us. As they prepared to leave the clearing, the spirit of the young woman spoke again. "Go with the blessings of the lost," she said. And as she did, the spirits began to sing. Their song was not of sorrow, but of hope and courage, a melody that lifted the spirits of the travelers and fortified them against the darkness that lay ahead. The song of the lost echoed in their ears as they left the clearing, a reminder of the stakes of their quest. With the lessons of the lost etched in their hearts, they pressed on, deeper into the heart of the forest, towards challenges unknown, but spirits buoyed by the knowledge that they were not alone in their journey. As the group ventured deeper into the forest, the air grew cooler, and the trees seemed to lean in closer, as if eager to listen. The path underfoot was now a blend of moss and ancient, knotted roots, weaving patterns that whispered of age-old secrets. The tales of the lost had left a lingering echo in their minds, a reminder of the trials and tribulations that lay ahead. It was in this reflective atmosphere that Eldan, the hermit, slowed his steps, his usually inscrutable face clouded with the ghosts of memories long past. Sensing a change, Leah prompted him gently. "Eldan, you've walked these paths longer than any of us. What burdens you?" Eldan stopped and turned to face the group, his eyes deep pools of knowledge and sorrow. "It is time," he began, his voice resonant with the weight of untold stories, "that I share more of my own journey, for it is deeply entwined with the fate of this forest and the darkness we seek to confront." The group gathered around, the forest seemingly holding its breath as Eldan spoke. "Many years ago, I was not just a guardian of this forest, I was its apprentice. My master was a powerful protector of the old magic that binds this place. When Morloth, the demon we now seek to thwart, first sought to corrupt the forest's heart, it was my master who led the fight against him." Corin, the jovial giant, shifted uneasily, the gravity of Eldan's words not lost on him. "What happened in that battle?" he asked, his voice a low rumble. Eldan's gaze drifted to the canopy above, where small beams of light fought to pierce the dense foliage. "We fought valiantly, but Morloth was cunning. He had delved into forbidden magics that twisted nature itself. In the final confrontation, my master sacrificed himself to bind Morloth, using a spell that required the ultimate price. His life for the forest's safety." The air around them seemed to thicken with the weight of Eldan's confession. Whisper, the talking crow fluttered closer, his usual sharp tone soft. "And you," he croaked, "you were left to guard what remained." "Yes," Eldan confirmed with a nod. "I was left with the burden of guardianship and the sorrow of loss. I retreated into the solitude of these woods, not just to protect the forest, but to keep away from the world I felt I had failed. Leah reached out, placing a hand on Eldan's arm, a gesture of understanding and support. You did not fail, Eldan. You carried on when others might have faltered. And now we stand with you, together in this. Eldan's eyes shone with unshed tears, the barriers around his heart melting away under the warmth of companionship. Thank you, Leah. With you all, I dare to hope that we can heal the scars left by those dark times. The group continued their journey. Now, not just a band of adventurers, but a fellowship forged in the fires of shared burdens and shared hopes. Eldan, feeling a lightness he had not felt in years, led the way with renewed purpose. They were ready to face whatever the forest would throw at them, bound together by their stories, their losses, and their unyielding resolve. As the shadows of the evening began to gather, they prepared for a night under the forest's canopy, their spirits lifted by the fires of friendship and their unspoken vows to protect not just the forest, but each other. As twilight descended upon the whispering woods, the travelers found a secluded glen where the light of the setting sun filtered through the leaves, casting golden patterns on the forest floor. Here, they decided to make camp for the night, aware that the morrow might bring them face to face with their greatest challenge yet. Corin, with his usual gusto, gathered wood for a fire, while Leah and Eldan prepared a simple meal from the provisions they carried. The fire soon crackled to life, its warm glow a small beacon of comfort in the encroaching darkness of the forest. Around this fire they gathered, each feeling the warmth not just of the flames, but of the company they kept. With the fire humming and dinner underway, the atmosphere softened into one of camaraderie and reflection. Eldan, now more open after sharing his past, began. In the guardianship of this forest, there are tales of old, some of which speak of the fires of friendship, flames that do more than warm the flesh. They warm the soul. Tonight, let us share such a fire. Encouraged by Eldan's words, each member of the group took a turn sharing tales from their own lives. Corin spoke of his youth in the Giant's Vale, where he learned the values of laughter and strength in unity. His stories, full of mirth and mischief, brought smiles and laughter, easing the tension that had built over their journey. Whisper, who seldom spoke of himself, shared a tale of the day he first discovered his ability to speak the human tongue, an event that had terrified and amazed him. His recounting, filled with humorous misunderstandings and eventual acceptance, reminded them all of the value of unique traits in forging bonds. Leah shared more of her own story, of the day she had taken up her sword not out of desire, but necessity, when her village was threatened by marauders. Her tale was one of courage and spontaneous leadership, qualities that had defined her path ever since. Finally, Eldan spoke of a time long ago when he and his master had walked these same paths, learning from the forest itself. His story was tinged with nostalgia and the wisdom of age, teaching them all that every step in life, whether joyous or fraught with sorrow, contributed to the depth of one's spirit. As they shared their stories, the fire seemed to burn brighter, its light chasing away the shadows, both around them and within their hearts. This was the magic of the fires of friendship, as ancient and potent as any spell of the guardians. That night, as they lay down to rest, each felt a deep, unspoken bond that went beyond their shared quest. They were no longer just allies brought together by circumstance. They were friends, each strengthened by the other's dreams, fears, and hopes. Their laughter and shared stories lingered in the air, weaving through the trees, as if the forest itself listened and perhaps approved. As the first light of dawn filtered through the trees of the whispering woods, casting long shadows and painting the forest floor in hues of gold and amber, the travelers awoke, stirred by a palpable change in the air. The night had passed peacefully, but the day brought with it a tension that was almost tangible. They knew that today they would face Morloth, and their journey would reach its critical moment. After a quiet breakfast, they gathered their belongings and set out, moving deeper into the heart of the forest. The trees seemed to lean closer, as if to whisper secrets or perhaps warnings. Eldan led the way, his staff tapping rhythmically against the ground, each tap a steady heartbeat in the quiet of the forest. It wasn't long before the atmosphere shifted, the air growing colder, and a mist began to rise from the ground, swirling around their feet. The forest had changed. The whispers were now hushed, as if in anticipation or dread. Suddenly, the path ahead cleared, revealing a large, dark glade where no light seemed to penetrate. At its center stood Morloth, his form more shadow than flesh, his presence a blight on the natural beauty around him. His eyes, like pits of fire, fixed on the group as they approached. "Welcome, travelers," his voice echoed, a sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. "You have come far and faced much, but it is all for naught. You cannot defeat me, for I am woven into the very fabric of this forest." Leah stepped forward, her sword drawn, her voice resolute. "We have come to end your corruption, Morloth. This forest no longer belongs to you." Morloth laughed, a sound that chilled their bones. "Is that what you think? Let us see how strong your bonds truly are." With a wave of his hand, illusions sprang up around each of them, targeting their deepest fears and insecurities. Spectres from their past, twisted visions of their failures and darkest moments. Corin faced an image of his village in ruins, his people blaming him for not being strong enough. Whisper saw the forest caged and dying, his freedom forever lost. Eldan was confronted with the spectre of his master, accusing him of betrayal and cowardice. Leah saw her friends turned against her, driven apart by lies and mistrust. But they were prepared. They had faced their fears at the river of whispers and shared their truths by the fires of friendship. Each knew that these were but shadows, manipulations meant to weaken them. With a rallying cry, Leah called to her friends, "Remember who we are, stand strong together." Inspired by her leadership, each shook off the crippling doubt instilled by Morloth's illusions. They stood united, their resolve hardened like steel. Seeing his deceptions failing, Morloth's form flickered with rage. He gathered the shadows, preparing to unleash a torrent of dark magic. But before he could strike, Eldan stepped forward, chanting words of an ancient spell. The very one his master had used, now strengthened by the unity and power of his companions. The spell washed over Morloth, binding him once more, weakening him enough for Leah to strike. With a clean, powerful thrust, she pierced the shadow, the blade glowing with a light gifted by the guardians they had honored along their journey. As Morloth's form dissipated, the darkness lifting, the forest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Light returned, the mist cleared, and the natural sounds of the woods resumed, a symphony of life that had been suppressed under his rule. The travelers, exhausted but victorious, looked around at the now peaceful glade. They had faced the demon and his deceptions and had emerged stronger, not just as warriors, but as friends bound by a journey that had tested every fiber of their being. As they prepared to leave the glade, they knew their adventure was not yet over. The forest still held many secrets, but for now, they had restored its heart, and in doing so, had found the strength of their own. Chapter 3: The Battle of Dawn. The first light of dawn was not yet visible when the travelers, now defenders of the Whispering Woods, began their preparations. The defeat of Morloth had been a significant victory, but it was clear that the forest still bore the scars of the darkness that had touched it. The guardians they had met along their path had warned them of lingering threats, remnants of Morloth's influence that needed to be cleared for the forest to truly heal. As they gathered their gear, Eldan spoke of the need to form an alliance with the guardians they had encountered. Ayla, the guardian of the Eastern Wood, the spectral wolf of the Trial of Courage, and the spirits of the Lament of the Lost, who could now rest knowing their failures had contributed to a greater good. Leah, ever the tactician, proposed a strategy. We'll split up and visit each guardian. We'll ask them to join us in a final stand to cleanse the forest. Together, we can restore balance and ensure that no darkness returns. Corin and Whisper agreed, and they quickly devised a plan. Leah and Eldon would return to the spectral wolf, whose strength and insight would be crucial. Corin, with his mighty strength and booming voice, would go to Ayla, and Whisper, due to his ability to move quickly and silently, would communicate with the spirits of the lost. Each party set out at the break of dawn, moving through the forest with a purpose renewed by their recent victory. The air, once heavy with menace, now seemed lighter, filled with the sounds of a waking forest. Leah and Eldon found the spectral wolf in the clearing, where they had faced their fears. The guardian recognized them immediately, its glowing eyes softening. "You have shown great courage," it spoke, its voice resonating with the power of the forest. "What do you ask of me now?" "We seek your strength in a final effort to cleanse these woods," Leah explained, her voice clear and firm. "Will you stand with us?" The wolf's response was a low growl of assent, a sound that seemed to stir the very earth. "I will stand with you," it declared, its figure growing brighter, a sign of its commitment. Meanwhile, Corin approached Ela with the same request. The old guardian, his beard more tangled than ever with leaves and twigs, nodded slowly. "The forest has suffered long," he said, his voice like the rustling of dry leaves. "I will join your alliance for the good of all that lives within these bounds." Whisper reached the spirits of the lost, who, freed from their eternal lament, were eager to contribute to the forest's healing. "We will do what we can," they whispered in unison, their voices a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves. With all the allies gathered, the travelers returned to the heart of the forest, where the final battle would take place. The guardians took their places, forming a circle around the ancient heart tree, the very core of the forest's magic. As the sun rose, casting golden light through the trees, the alliance stood ready. Eldon began to chant, his voice rising in an ancient spell that would draw out the remaining shadows. Leah, Corin, and the others readied themselves, their weapons drawn, their hearts steady. The Battle of Dawn was about to begin. As the day waned and dusk spread its velvet shroud over the whispering woods, the alliance of guardians and travelers prepared for the impending siege. The air was tense, thick with the scent of ancient earth and the sharp tang of magic. Shadows deepened, stretching long fingers across the forest floor as if to grasp at the light that dared to linger. in the heart of the woods, around the venerable heart tree, the defenders gathered. Leah, Corin, Eldan, Whisper, and the assembled guardians. Each stood vigilant, their eyes scanning the encroaching darkness. The heart tree, a massive ancient oak whose branches seemed to cradle the sky itself, pulsed with a gentle, luminous energy, its light a beacon in the growing gloom. As night fell in earnest, the first wave of shadows crept forward. These were not mere absences of light, but sentient, malevolent things, remnants of Morloth's dark magic left to fester even after his defeat. They slithered and crawled, emerging from the darkest corners of the forest, their forms fluid and shifting. Eldan raised his staff, the top alight with a glowing ember of magic, and began to chant. The words were old, older than the trees around them, and they filled the air with power. The heart tree responded, its light pulsing stronger, casting long shadows away from the clearing. Leah stood at the forefront, her sword drawn, a line of determination etched across her face. She met the first shadow with a swift, clean stroke, her blade cutting through the dark as if it were cloth. Beside her, Corin swung his mighty axe, each blow resonating like thunder, felling shadows as one might fell timber. Whisper darted above, his sharp eyes spotting the shadows as they emerged. His calls directed the guardians, warning them of the denser congregations of dark forms. Ayla, with a staff of his own, directed waves of earth and vine to ensnare and crush the encroaching darkness, his actions as fluid as the wind. The spectral wolf, its form shimmering with an ethereal light, patrolled the perimeter, its presence alone enough to make some of the lesser shadows hesitate. But the battle was not easily won. Wave after wave of shadows surged towards the clearing, each wave stronger and more desperate than the last. As the night deepened, so did the intensity of the siege. The guardians and travelers fought back to back, their circle around the heart tree tightening. Leah, noticing a particularly large shadow looming towards Eldan, leaped to intercept it. With a shout, she drove it back, her sword a silver flash in the night. "We must hold until dawn," Eldan shouted over the din of battle, his voice carrying the weight of urgency. "The light will cleanse what remains." Exhausted but resolute, the alliance held firm. They moved as one, a dance of blades, magic, and sheer will. And as the first hint of dawn touched the horizon, a pale light that promised the return of the sun, the shadows hesitated, their forms becoming less certain, their movements faltering. The night siege was long and fraught with peril, but as the light grew stronger, so did the resolve of the alliance. The shadows, sensing the turn of the tide, began to retreat, dissolving into the mist as the sun's rays pierced the forest canopy. Breathless and weary, the defenders of the whispering woods stood together as dawn broke fully. The heart tree's light now a soft glow in the daylight. They had endured the night, and though the battle had been harrowing, their spirits were lifted by the victory, by the proof that together they were stronger than the darkness. With the dawn casting its golden glow over the whispering woods, the Alliance felt a surge of relief and renewed strength. The night siege had tested them all, pushing each to their limits. Yet it was their unity and shared resolve that had seen them through. As they gathered around the heart tree, its light now mingling with the rays of the morning sun, Eldon began to speak of the power they had yet to fully comprehend. The battle is won, but the war is not yet over, Eldon stated, his eyes sweeping over his companions. The darkness has been held at bay, but only the purest of hearts can truly cleanse this forest. Today, we will harness that power. Leah nodded, stepping forward with a clear sense of purpose. Our hearts brought us here, through every trial. Let's use that strength to heal the land. Eldon instructed them to form a circle around the heart tree, each taking a position equidistant from the others, their hands extended towards the tree. As they did so, Eldon began to chant in an ancient tongue, his words not just spoken but felt, vibrating through the air with the power of the earth itself. One by one, the others joined in, though they did not know the words, their hums and murmurs harmonizing with Eldon's chant, guided by the innate magic that flowed through the forest and within themselves. The heart tree responded, its light brightening, pulsing in time with their chant. The light expanded, enveloping the group in a warm, golden glow. It felt as if the very essence of the forest was merging with their own, healing not just the land, but the scars they had each carried with them. Leah felt a warmth spreading through her chest, an energy that coursed through her veins like liquid sunlight. Corin, standing tall and firm, felt the strength of the earth rise through his feet, empowering him further, reinforcing his resolve to protect not just his friends, but the entire forest. Whisper, fluttering within the circle, felt an uncharacteristic calm envelop him. His usual restlessness soothed by the profound sense of belonging and purpose that the light instilled in him. As the chant grew louder and the light brighter, a visible change began to occur throughout the forest. Where shadows had once lurked, now wildflowers sprang up, pushing through the earth with vibrant colors. Trees that had been withered and twisted by dark magic now stood tall and robust, their leaves a lush canopy of green. Finally, as the chant reached its crescendo, the light burst forth in a radiant wave, sweeping through the forest with the warmth and brightness of the midday sun. The wave passed over every inch of the forest, cleansing it of the residual darkness, purifying the land with the power of their unified pure hearts. As the light receded, the group felt a profound exhaustion mixed with exhilaration. They had done more than survive a battle. They had restored a piece of the world. The power of pure hearts, Eldon said, his voice thick with emotion, is the greatest magic there is. They broke the circle, each stepping back to view the heart tree, now glowing steadily, a beacon of the health and balance they had restored. The forest around them buzzed with life, a chorus of creatures singing, as if in gratitude and celebration. They had learned that their unity was not just their strength, but their greatest weapon against the darkness. They were more than defenders. They were healers, restorers of balance. As the forest around them thrived with renewed vigor, the Alliance felt a collective sense of accomplishment that went beyond the mere physical restoration of the woods. They gathered once again beneath the boughs of the heart tree, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth, a testament to their victory over the darkness. It was then that a new figure approached, stepping into the light cast by the heart tree. This was no ordinary guardian. It was a being of radiant light, ethereal and graceful, with a presence that seemed as ancient as the forest itself. The figure was known as Selethiel, the last guardian, whose existence few knew and even fewer had witnessed. "Selethiel," Eldon murmured, his voice tinged with awe. The others looked on in wonder, sensing the deep power emanating from this luminous being. "You have done well, brave hearts," Selethiel spoke, her voice like a melody, harmonizing perfectly with the natural sounds around them. "The forest sings a new song, one of hope and renewal, thanks to your courage and unity. But the path of a guardian is ever winding and seldom clear. Thus, I offer you a gift to aid in your continued journey." From the light surrounding her, Selethiel produced a small chest, ornately carved and glowing with a gentle light. She opened it to reveal 3 items: a crystal that pulsed with the same light as the heart tree, a silver cloak that shimmered with an ethereal essence, and a small horn, intricately carved from what appeared to be a fallen star. "The crystal will guide you when the path ahead is obscured," Selethiel explained, handing it to Eldon, who took it with a reverent bow. "Its light is drawn from the heart tree itself, a beacon for those who protect the natural world." The silver cloak she handed to Leah. "This cloak will shield you from the eyes of those who wish harm upon the forest and its guardians. Wear it in times of peril, and you will be as elusive as the wind." Finally, she handed the horn to Corin. "Sound this horn in your darkest hour, and aid will come. It calls to those who have pledged to defend this forest wherever they may be." With a graceful nod to Whisper, Xalithiel added, "And you, Wise One, need no gift of items. Your voice, your insight has proven your worth. Continue to speak, and the forest will listen." The group accepted these gifts with deep gratitude, each feeling a renewed sense of responsibility and honor. "How can we ever thank you?" Leah asked, her voice filled with emotion. "Live well. Protect this forest. Let your deeds be your thanks," Sleipytime replied, her smile as warm as the dappled sunlight. "And remember, you are never alone. The forest watches, the earth listens, and the wind carries your hopes." With those final words, Sleipytime stepped back, her form dissolving into light that seemed to seep into the very soil, leaving a trail of luminescent flowers blooming in her wake. As the last guardian vanished, the alliance stood together, each contemplating the weight of their gifts and the path ahead. They were no longer mere travelers or adventurers. They were guardians in their own right, each bound to the forest and each other in ways they had never imagined. With the heart tree as their backdrop, they pledged once again to protect the forest, to stand against any who would threaten its sanctity. Their journey had changed them, molded them into defenders of nature, of life. With the gifts of the last guardian in their possession, the group felt an enhanced sense of duty and capability. However, there remained one final task to ensure the security of the Whispering Woods: the complete eradication of Morloth's lingering influence. Eldan, deeply versed in the lore and magic of the forest, shared his knowledge that Morloth, while weakened, had left shards of his essence scattered throughout the forest. A malignant seed that could sprout darkness anew if not cleansed. "We must find these remnants and destroy them utterly," Eldan declared, his eyes scanning the vibrant canopy and the shadows beneath. "The gifts we've received will aid us, but it will still require all our strength and unity to succeed." The group set out at dawn, moving deeper into the forest's heart, where the shadows grew thicker and the air buzzed with a silent, watchful energy. Leah, draped in her silver cloak, moved almost invisibly through the underbrush, her steps silent as falling leaves. Corin, with the horn slung across his back, wielded his axe with a renewed vigor, cutting through brambles and thickets that blocked their path. Whisper, ever vigilant, soared above, calling down to them when he spotted the dark shards, crystalline structures that pulsed with a dull, ominous light. These were the remnants of Morloth's essence, each a beacon of corrupting power that needed to be extinguished. At each site, Eldan took the lead, using the crystal from Sleipytime to focus their efforts. He chanted ancient words, a spell of purging, while Leah and Corin guarded him against the twisted creatures that the shards summoned. Ghastly figures made of shadow and malice, desperate to protect the remnants of their master. One by one, the shards were destroyed, each eruption of light cleansing the area, causing the plants and trees around them to sigh and bloom with renewed vigor. The air grew fresher, the oppressive weight of corruption lifting with each victory. As they approached the location of the final shard, the resistance intensified. Dark vines thrashed and writhed, blocking their path, and shadowy figures assaulted them from all sides. Leah's cloak shimmered as she moved through the shadows, her sword a flash of silver in the dark. Corin's roars matched the ferocity of their foes as he swung his axe, each strike resonant with the power of the horn, which hummed softly, a sound of impending aid. Eldan, focusing on the crystal, prepared for a final, decisive spell. As he chanted, the ground trembled, and the trees around them bent as if in anticipation. With a final shout, he thrust the crystal forward, directing a beam of pure, radiant light at the shard. The explosion of light was blinding, more intense than any before. When the light faded, the forest was silent. The shard was gone, disintegrated into a fine dust that the wind quickly swept away. They had done it. The forest was free from Morloth's taint. The creatures of shadow dissolved into the air, their forms disappearing as if they had never been. Exhausted, yet exhilarated, the group returned to the heart tree, which now glowed with a light so pure and inviting, it seemed to welcome them back like old friends. They had not only defeated a demon, but had restored the very soul of the forest. This victory is not just for us, or even for the forest, Leah said, her voice steady with pride and fatigue. It's a promise to guard, to protect, and to heal. Today, we fulfilled that promise. As they rested beneath the boughs of the heart tree, they knew their journey had changed them forever. They were guardians, heroes bound by destiny to protect the natural world. After the cleansing of the forest from Morloth's dark influence, the group settled under the ancient branches of the heart tree, which seemed to embrace them with a serene energy. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of new growth and the melodious songs of birds, a stark contrast to the silence that had once gripped the woods. As they rested, the ground beneath them began to tremble lightly, not with the ominous foreboding of an earthquake, but as if something deep within the earth was awakening. Eldan, attuned to the rhythms and moods of the forest, stood and beckoned the others to follow. The forest has one more secret to share with us, he said, a smile of wonder playing on his lips. They walked to a secluded part of the forest, where the trees parted around a hidden glen that none of them had noticed before. At the center of the glen was a stone pedestal, ancient and covered with moss, and upon it rested a book bound in leaves and vines that pulsed with a gentle, verdant light. "The Codex of the Guardians," Eldon whispered, reverence in his voice. "It is said that when the forest deems its protectors worthy, it reveals the Codex to them. Within its pages are the wisdom of the ages and the tales of all guardians who have protected these woods." Leah approached the pedestal and gently opened the book. The pages were made of a material that was neither paper nor fabric, filled with elegant script that flowed like the streams of the forest. As she turned the pages, the words seemed to lift from the pages, their messages clear and profound, speaking of balance, courage, and the sacred duty of protectors. "This is more than a gift," Leah said, her voice filled with awe. "It's a legacy, and now we are a part of it." Each member of the group took a turn reading from the Codex, finding passages that resonated with their experiences and their deepest beliefs about nature and guardianship. Corin, touched by the tales of past giants who had stood as protectors, felt a deep connection to the land that he had never fully understood before. Whisper too found wisdom in the tales, seeing the echoes of his own journey in the stories of other creatures who had served the forest in their unique ways. "We each bring something different," he noted, his voice thoughtful. "Yet together we form the heart of the forest's defense." As the day turned to evening, the group made their way back to the heart tree, their minds full of the stories and lessons from the Codex. The forest seemed even more alive now, its secrets shared with those who had proven themselves worthy. And as the sun set, casting long shadows across the newly vibrant underbrush, a new path illuminated gently before them, winding deeper into unexplored parts of the forest. Eldon explained that this was the path of the Guardians, a route that only appeared to those who had received the forest's blessing through the Codex. "This path," Eldon concluded, looking at each of his friends, "is our next adventure. It will show us places the forest has kept hidden, guarding them for those who truly understand its heart." The group agreed to set out on this new path come morning, their spirits high and their hearts filled with the courage and wisdom bestowed by the forest. They were not just friends or adventurers now. They were guardians of a sacred legacy, ready to explore the deeper mysteries of the Whispering Woods. As night fell and the stars peered down through the canopy, the forest whispered its ancient lullabies, cradling its new protectors in peace and promise. The journey ahead would be filled with wonders and challenges, but for now they rested, the heart tree watching over them, its light a soft glow in the darkness, a symbol of enduring guardianship and the eternal cycle of renewal.